M is for Mason.
G is for Graham.
B is for Bagshaw.
And this is the MGB Wrestling Podcast, the podcast with PG-rated material accessible to wrestling fans of all ages. Let's take a look at the card for episode 2 of the MGB Wrestling Podcast. In match 1, we have podcasts of the week. In match 2, we have my top 3 moments from the Elimination Chamber. In match 3, we have a quick round of Are You Smarter Than a 4th Grader? And in match 4, we take a look at our top 3 moments from Monday Night Raw. In match 5, we look at This Week in Wrestling News. And in match 6, we look at our top 3 moments from Smackdown Live. And in match 7, we have the Tweet of the Week. My name is Graham Bagshaw, and my co-host and creator of this podcast is proof that wrestling fans live with their parents still, my 10-year-old son, Mason. Now, we're actually recording a little earlier this week for a couple of reasons. One, we're not going to do Impact this week because there was the Elimination Chamber, and also it's Thursday night. We've had storm warnings in the DC area, and Mason's just found out he doesn't have to go to school tomorrow. And as a teacher, that means I don't have to go to a school tomorrow. So, Mason, how's your week so far then?
Great now.
Yeah, we literally just found out 10 minutes ago. We'd intended recording tonight, and then we got back from school a little later, so we didn't manage to get it done. And then we found they cancelled school ahead of time, so we decided to go ahead and release this today. Now, what I do want to know, though, is are you going to apologise to Mr. Empens, your teacher, for saying his class was boring last week?
Not really. He put me through some more boring stuff because we had a solar systems test today. I got 19 out of 20. And next week, March 7th, we're going to have a decimals test now, too.
All right, quick quiz from me then. So how many planets are there in the solar system?
8.
All right, and what's the nearest star to Earth?
I don't know.
No, the moon is a moon. The sun.
Oh.
All right, anyway, never mind that. All right, we are on Twitter at MGB Wrestling Pod, and I personally am on Twitter at Mr. Bagshaw. You can also email us at mgbwrestlingpod@gmail.com and subscribe to us on our YouTube channel at MGB Wrestling Podcast. To begin, match 1, Podcasts of the Week, we have Chasing Glory with Lillian Garcia versus the Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast. And it's scheduled for
1 fall.
So, this week's episode with Lillian Garcia of Chasing Glory was with Stephanie McMahon. We got to find out a little bit about her as she was growing up in the industry, what sort of role she does now. I found it kind of informative. There was a lot of things I didn't realise. You assume that with her being in that family, that she sort of had everything pretty much easy. Her dad, as far as I can tell, used to make her work in all the other departments. So she had to work as like a secretary. She had to work in marketing, so she's actually had to work really hard for everything that she's been given. Certainly, having her dad give her that chance in the first place was interesting. Was obviously helped her, but it was interesting to see all the things she's had to deal with. And the second one is the Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast, which seems to be focused around Nova Pro Wrestling. And that was what our first special was about, and we're also going to do one of those coming up fairly soon as well. It was an interview with Logan Easton LaRoe. It was released on February 23rd. And do you want to tell us a little bit about Logan Easton LaRoe, Mason?
Yeah, he's part of the 1%ers. I think he might be the captain of the 1%ers.
I think that's Gunnar Miller, who we got your picture with last time. But he's certainly he's sort of the face of that group. He's the one that started it off. And he's the one that got the fans to form their own little group called the Gated Community, who sit off to one side. They got their own protective ropes around them, and things like that. I'm going to pick this one actually as my winner for this week because it was kind of interesting on the podcast to hear somebody you're not normally used to hearing. We often hear some of these big stars, and it was nice to actually hear a Nova Pro star who I've certainly not heard on any other interviews. I thought that was definitely a very interesting podcast, and one I've certainly listened to 3 or 4 episodes of already. I will say for the Lillian Garcia episode, I thought Alexa Bliss's episode was very interesting, and the battle she's faced with her eating habits and anorexia. And also Charlotte Flair's episode, she had to talk about the death of her brother, clearly very emotional for her. And that's certainly another good podcast that we would recommend to you. But for this week, we're going to recommend the Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast. So, Mason, what was your choice then for Podcast of the Week?
I liked View from the Top Ropes because, yeah, my question was on it.
Okay, so this was episode 34, and I was actually supposed to ask you about this last week in the intro, and I totally forgot. It was our first episode. I was a little flustered, and we totally forgot to mention it. And we definitely want to give a shout out to those guys from View from the Top Rope. I've certainly had a few questions submitted and answered in the last few weeks as well. So your question was, with most people knowing the main event at WrestleMania will be Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar, remembering that this is just about a week ago, so we didn't actually know that Roman Reigns had won the Elimination Chamber at this point. What are your predictions for the following WrestleMania? So, I don't know if you want me to tell me your answer, Mason, or if you want to tell us some of their answers. If you can remember any of those?
Well, it was a few days ago. I think one of the people said the main event would be Alexa Bliss versus Ronda Rousey.
I think they certainly talked about Ronda Rousey. I think that possibly Oscar was mentioned as well, which, if they certainly go that route, I don't think there's ever been a top billing before WrestleMania for the women's event. But certainly the impact that Ronda Rousey's had in the last few days certainly seems very possible. Obviously, a lot of interest in her. But yeah, so what about your prediction? Do you have a prediction, or are you going to go with what the guys said on the show?
I think it's gonna be Undertaker John Cena.
Which is what they talked about actually this week on Raw, wasn't it? And I'm sure we'll probably mention that a little bit later. One thing I did hear today is that Oscar could probably stay undefeated, and then she could probably face Ronda Rousey after she's got a little bit more experience. And I certainly like the sound of that one, but yeah, I agree with the guys. It's very difficult to predict a year ahead. Whether people like Brock Lesnar are still going to be in WWE at that point, and yeah, very difficult to know who's going to come up, so we'll have to see. Now, we do need to mention, we've only been watching wrestling for 2 years, or Mason has. I take gaps periodically, so I've been not watching wrestling for probably 5 or 6 years, and then started watching it again. So I was kind of interested to see the Reigns-Lesnar. I know a lot of people are very bored by that match. I've heard a lot of negativity. So I actually watched the WrestleMania 31 match last night. I thought it was kind of interesting. There's certainly a lot of parallels. There was a lot of booing for Reigns at the start. In fact, somebody had a sign where it said, "We riot if he wins." Whoa. So, yeah, not very popular at all. Started off very quick. Lesnar went in for his normal quick attack. Slammed Reigns into a post, gave him an F5. He actually got a cut in the first 30 seconds. A lot was happening. He didn't pin him. It was very strange. He just left him and he was just like, I'm going to punish this guy. I'm not going to win the match. I just want to humiliate him, basically. This went on for a long time. Roman started laughing, which I thought was like an it's like, why is he laughing? He's getting suplexed. There was 10 suplex. There was multiple F5s. The crowd were booing whenever Roman was actually taking the lead in that match. And finally, it came down to Seth Rollins cashing in his Money in the Bank. Became a triple threat match. And the last part was there was a stomp to Lesnar. Lesnar grabbed Rollins, was about to do an F5. Reigns speared Lesnar. Lesnar went out the ring, and then Rollins actually covered Reigns, and Rollins became the new champion. So I hadn't seen that match before. I thought it was a really good match. Kind of short. It was only like 20 minutes, but I don't know. If they can recreate something like that, I'm probably the most optimistic fan of anybody right now for Reigns versus Lesnar. I don't know if you're looking forward for that match, Mason, or not.
I haven't seen the match yet. It sounds like a great match. It just sounds like it's a one-on-one match, and then in the middle of the match there's a three-way, kind of like a...
Yep, Seth Rollins sprinted down. Think how big those ramps are from the last year's WrestleMania. It's a long run, and it takes a while for then the referee to get the attention of everybody else. Like, oh, we want to start this as he wants to cash in. And then at that time, of course, they're all recovering as well. I thought it was a good finish. I thought it was an exciting one. And that's one, well, we got the day off tomorrow. That's one that we can watch. But I'm excited for that one. Okay. In our second match, scheduled for
1-4,
we have Graham doing his own promo of the best moments from Elimination Chamber on Sunday night in Las Vegas. Now, I know Mason's not very happy about this, but unfortunately, Mason lost his video Sunday night. And he probably needs an apology to Mommy for that one. But so I'm going to do my own moments for this one. I'm going to keep it fairly short. My third moment, I went with the men's Elimination Chamber. Braun Strowman eliminated 5 people, and he still didn't win. And we've already mentioned that Roman Reigns did win that match, and he's going on to WrestleMania now to face Brock Lesnar. Not really surprising. I think we all knew that was going to happen. My new number 2 moment, also not surprising, but I'm finally glad it happened. Sasha kicking Bayley off the Elimination Chamber pod after offering to help her up, so she's turned heel. And they showed some of these highlights on Monday Night Raw, so we did see that. And my number 1 moment was so easy to pick. Ronda Rousey coming out, putting Triple H through a table. And I just loved how Kurt Angle was setting up Triple H and Stephanie and kept throwing comments out like, didn't you say this? And then, didn't you say that? And Triple H is trying to escort him out the ring. But yeah, putting him through the table. He nearly missed the table. But besides that, that was definitely my number 1 match.
I heard that like twice on Raw.
Yeah. They definitely showed that clip as well. I heard a lot of people preferred the promo by Ronda Rousey on Raw as opposed to the one on the Elimination Chamber. I was the other way around. I thought the Elimination Chamber one was much better. The one for Raw, I was a little bit like, I didn't find it anywhere near as exciting, but that was one of my personal preferences. All right, in our 3rd match today, scheduled for
1-4.
Are You Smarter Than a 4th Grader? And this features Mason versus you, the listener. Now, last week I meant to actually read all the questions out ahead of time so the listener could take part, and I did mess up on that one as well. So this time we're going to try and do a slightly better job from that. Now, I have a list, Mason. This was from WrestlingInc.com. This was from February 18th. So I have the list of the top 10 people here. Now, 7 of them are listed, and I checked on WWE.com this afternoon, are quoted as current superstars. Therefore, that would mean, I know you got your math test later, 3 people, therefore, are not listed as current superstars. So we're talking about somebody who's probably retired, okay? Mason, you get 5 guesses, and you need to try and pick 3 wrestlers, okay? So 3 out of 5. So I'm not going to ask you to pick all 10 because that's kind of a lot. But you only got to pick 3 of the wrestlers on this top 10 list, okay? And you got 5 guesses. Extra credit if you pick the number 1 most followed person on Twitter, okay? As far as I can tell, this is only WWE wrestlers. I didn't keep the list. I can't find it anymore, but I'm assuming this is just WWE people, okay? And I think that's all you actually need to know. So if you want to play along at home, you can certainly pause the podcast and come up with who your 5 people are, and then you can play along with Mason. So, Mason, having talked for a while now, I'm sure you've had a little chance to think, and I gave you a little heads up. I said start thinking of famous people. Do you want to give me your first pick? I also have some near misses, so people I thought probably would have been on this list and weren't. I have how many people followed them. The 10th person has 3.4 million followers, so these are all fairly followed people on Twitter.
Good. John Cena.
John Cena is number 2 on that list with 10.9 million followers, so that was a good pick. That one was kind of an obvious one, I think, to begin with, but yes, he's very popular.
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Stone Cold Steve Austin is number 6 on that list with 4.4 million. So he was one of the 3 that's obviously not still wrestling as well. All right, so you got 3 more picks. You only need 1 more for a pass. 60% in your school district to pass.
Let's go Undertaker.
Undertaker, no, and that's the first name I have listed on the one that I thought would probably have been high on there. Undertaker, only 100,000 followers on Twitter. What? I was really surprised by that one as well, because I was thinking, wonder where he is on that list. All right, so that one was a no, so you've had 3 guesses, you got 2 more, and you need 1 more person who's on this list.
Is Mr. Impens lucky? Is Mr. Impens lucky because his favorite wrestler is The Rock? Is it The Rock?
The Rock is number 1 on that list, so you've actually got the extra credit as well for this one. The Rock has 12.6 million followers on Twitter.
Wow.
Of course, he's a very famous actor now. I think last year I heard 2017. Actually, I think it might be the year before. 2016, he earned more money as an actor than any other actor in Hollywood.
Whoa.
So he's got sort of 2 fields where people follow him for. So already you've passed, so there's no pressure now. You got 3 out of 6. 3 out of 5, but you got 1 more guess. Would you like to see if you can get 4 out of 5? Who else is on this list? And I think it's kind of tough now. Now you got rid of the top 2.
Kofi Kingston.
See, I thought you were going to say Kurt Angle for a minute. I was like, he's going to go with Kurt Angle. I was like, that's a pretty good pick, actually. Kofi Kingston's not on this list. So anyway, you got 3 out of 5. I'm going to give you 10 points extra credit for picking The Rock as the highest scoring one. So I'm going to give you 70% on this one. So you got a C on this one. So good job, buddy. All right, 1 was The Rock. We already talked about. 2 was John Cena. You got. Number 3, the person who just moved into 3rd, it says. Although looking at these numbers, it looked like he moved in a while ago. Triple H.
Whoa.
7.1 million. He's actually listed as a current wrestler as well. So, although to me, I was thinking he was retired, he is listed as a current. That's why I had to use that phrase with you earlier. A current superstar. He's listed as a current superstar. Number 4, I thought you might get this one. Randy Orton.
He is?
5.8 million. Obviously, he's been around a long time now.
Yeah.
Number 5, this one totally surprised me. Sheamus. Sheamus, 4.8 million. I didn't even know Sheamus was popular, to be honest. But anyway, he's been around for a while now, but I don't think of him as one of the top people. 6 was Steve Austin. You got that one, 4.4. Number 7, another current superstar, Daniel Bryan. So is this a spoiler then for WrestleMania? Is Daniel Bryan actually going to face, I was going to say Vince McMahon. Sorry, is he going to face Shane McMahon at WrestleMania? I thought he was not. I thought he wasn't qualified. I thought he wasn't been cleared to wrestle. But according to this, he's listed as a current superstar. Now I don't know if that's because he appears in the ring, but I thought that was an interesting one as well. Number 8, another retired person, Shawn Michaels, 3.9 million. Okay. Number 9, another surprise me. Okay, I'm going to tell you there is one female on this list. Would you like to guess the one female? Now this is before Ronda Rousey had joined, remember? So I'm not sure how many she has actually. Who do you think the top female is?
Let me guess, Lita.
That's not a bad guess, actually. He's certainly very popular. Has been around for a long time. Nikki Bella. Nikki Bella. I was kind of surprised. She's listed as a current superstar as well. We did see her at the Royal Rumble, but certainly not one I think of. Number 10. I did wonder if you'd get this one because we're reading his book right now. Chris Jericho. 3.4 million. He obviously has his band as well, so he's been around for a long time as well. So he rounds out the top 10. The ones I thought you might come up with possibly the biggest guy probably on SmackDown right now, AJ Styles. 853,000. Miz, 2.95 million. So he was close, actually.
I know Vince. He is like 2.
And we looked him up the other day. Shane has 500,000. Vince certainly has over 1 million. Matt Hardy, he's been around a long time as well. I looked him up, 1.42 million. And of course, the big dog himself, Roman Reigns. Okay, he's got to be out there. 3.01 million. So I'm sure in the next few years he will probably move up that list a little bit as well. Okay. In our 4th match scheduled for
1 fall,
we have Mason versus Graham in Who Had the Best Moments from Raw, February 26th from Anaheim. So, Mason, do you want to start us off with, perhaps I should recap that. Sometimes we don't always have time to watch the full matches, and depends with Mason being at school. So we try and watch the highlights on Hulu the next day, because they do like a 2-hour version that's edited down so we don't have to watch all those commercials. Sometimes if we don't have time to do that, if you've got basketball practice, we'll watch the top 10 moments, which covers it in pretty much 6 minutes, and we're up to date. Now, we're not going to do 10 moments, but we're going to do 3 moments. We write down what we think our 3 moments are, and then we're going to compare them with what WWE had as their top 5, and then we'll see how well we actually did. So, Mason, do you want to talk about your first moment then from Monday Night Raw?
Number 3 was when John Cena challenged Undertaker, and then said, I already know that's not happening.
And I heard today that's definitely not going to happen. And I'm kind of glad. I liked how it finished last year. He put all his clothes in the middle of the ring and he left. And for me, I thought that was perfect. I don't know what you thought about that ending, but for me, I don't want to see Undertaker anymore. I'm quite happy. I think his career, he had a great career, and I'm quite happy for it to stop there. And I don't want to see him come back as a weakened person.
Yes.
So you're okay with that one too?
Yeah.
Now, he has had a few challenges, though. I saw the new person from NXT, and we talked about him last week a little bit. EC3 threw out a challenge. He said he would face him at NXT TakeOver, and I think it must be probably New Orleans as well. And also on Twitter, Chavo Guerrero also threw out a challenge. I'm assuming he's not going to pay any attention to that. And we'll see what happens. But we actually know now already that John Cena actually moved from Raw to SmackDown, and we'll talk about that when we get to Tuesday and SmackDown, okay? All right, your number 2 moment then, Mason.
Number two moment was when Strowman called Elias's singing in the ring at the start of each match noise pollution, and then Elias said Corey Grace's commentary was noise pollution. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, and I'm with you on this as well. I thought it was great as well.
I've got to say something about SmackDown real quick. I think Aiden English's song is noise pollution.
Oh,
I don't know if anybody agrees with me.
Oh, I totally agree with you. I can't stand Aiden English. I don't understand what that is at all. I don't know. It seems like he just stole that from Elias. Elias comes on and starts singing, and then a few weeks later he comes on and starts singing, but nowhere near as good. I also had that as one of my moments as well. I thought that was good. Now, I did want to add something to this as well, and I couldn't find the exact quote, but I remember, I think it was about 3 weeks ago, when Strowman came into the ring, somebody commented about, he's going to blow up the Chicken Man in, and I can't remember where it was. I'm going to say Anaheim. I know it's not Anaheim, last night. And people were like, what is he? No, but when he said that comment 3 weeks ago, it wasn't. And somebody was like, what is he talking about? We have no idea. Now, I knew straight away. I recognized that. And I mentioned this to you. That's a Bruce Springsteen lyric. The lyric is blowing up the chicken man in Philly last night. It's taken from the song Atlantic City. Now, it makes no sense in the commentary at all. Nobody knows why he actually said it. But my ears picked up straight away on this one when he walked in. They said, as soon as he storms to the ring, they mentioned there's going to be a wreck on the highway. And once again, I recognize that's a Bruce Springsteen song. So I'm not sure which commentator it is, but that seems to be a theme now. Try and fit in Bruce Springsteen lyrics or Bruce Springsteen songs into it. And I didn't pick up the voice at all. But yeah, so something's going on with that. So I'm going to keep my ears open for that one in the next few weeks when I see Strowman come in or if Elias is in that general area.
It sounds like something Michael Cole would say.
And I think if I had to guess, if you put me on the spot, I'm going to say it's Michael Cole, but I'm not sure. All right, do you want to give us your number one moment then?
So Stephanie came out demanding that Kurt Angle give Triple H and Stephanie an apology for what happened on Sunday, Elimination Chamber. So he said sorry, and he said he didn't even know what he said, suffering from double pneumonia.
Yeah, to me, that I wasn't impressed with this at all. Now, like I said, I really liked it in Elimination Chamber, but to me, it just seems so far-fetched. Like, he didn't have double pneumonia, or else he wouldn't even be there. Oh, I don't even remember what I said. To me, I don't believe he doesn't remember anything that he said at all. I wasn't buying any of this at all. I didn't have it at all in my top 3 moments. Just for that part, I wasn't really buying into it. But do you want to carry on with the rest of the story? What else developed from this?
So he said sorry, and Rhonda, she threatened Stephanie she would rip her arm out of her socket if she wouldn't say sorry to Rhonda for slapping her in the face.
And I thought that was perfectly fair. I'm going to say Rhonda got slapped. One other thing that happened in the midst of all this, Triple H did take out Kurt Angle, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later as well. All right, so my top 3 was, and I didn't really understand this, but I don't know if it's a top 3 moment, but it was, I guess part of it was, Bayley refuses the tag from Sasha in their tag team match. Now, the part that I'm confused about this was, she got kicked by Sasha. Sasha turned heel in the Elimination Chamber, but when Asuka's being attacked in the middle of the ring, who rushes out to help her? Sasha and Bayley at the same time? So these are 2 people now who are clear enemies, but they're going to run out at the same time? And then you're going to put them on a tag team together, trying to help Asuka? I thought the whole thing was very strange, but yeah, I wasn't buying into that one either. I guess I'm a little bit negative about this episode. I think we got spoiled last week. That episode of Raw last week was so good with the 2-hour match, and this week I wasn't as impressed with that. Did you want to add anything about that tag team match?
No.
It wasn't a great one. I'm not really that bothered about that one either. Number 2 was Walk with Elias, and we already talked about that one as well. I like that Corey Graves comment about every noise out of his mouth is noise pollution as well. And my number 1 moment that I went with for was the splash by Seth Rollins to finish off the Miz. Miz had 2 matches this week. He had to face Seth Rollins, and then he also had to face Finn Balor straight afterwards. It was 3/4 of the way across the ring. And the commentator was saying the same thing, like, that's too far. I'm thinking, why don't you just run around the other side? Mathematician in me, thinking it's just 1/4 of the way across the ring. But no, he went for the 3. He made it as well. He did that splash. He landed. And I thought that was very impressive. I know Seth Rollins is very athletic, but a very difficult maneuver to pull off. All right, shall we see how we did? Yeah. Okay, so the top 5 moments were, it was Elias, but not for what we went, with the fire extinguisher. So when he's outside the ring, he goes under the apron, grabs out the fire extinguisher, and sprays it straight at Braun Strowman. So that was their number 5. Number 4 was Rollins with a splash on Miz, so I got 1 point for that one. Number 3, Roman Reigns' promo about Brock Lesnar at the start. And actually thinking about it, he did actually do a good promo. He gets ripped for that a lot, but I thought he was actually pretty good. All the comments that he said about Brock, no, he wasn't there. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later as well, why he wasn't there. Number 2, another moment for Miz, the coup de grace by Finn on Miz. I didn't think that was as good as Rollins, personally. I didn't even consider that. He does a coup de grace every week, but anyway. And number 1, and you got this one, Ronda Rousey saying, you need to apologize to me, and if you don't, I won't hesitate to rip your arm out of its socket. So you got the number 1 moment. I didn't pick it because I picked it for my Elimination Chamber moment, but certainly I think that was a good moment for that one. Okay, in our 5th match scheduled for
1 fall
this week in wrestling news. Now, from Daily DDT website, Mike Heck reports that Dana White, the UFC president, said that the chances are very, 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 very good that Brock Lesnar will return to UFC. I think he's pretty confident then. And I think this is a great time to talk about this, having just talked about Raw and the fact that he wasn't there. So I learned from the HIAC podcast that I listened to today, apparently his contract is set to expire the day after WrestleMania. So what do you think, Mason? Is Lesnar going to re-sign, or is he going to go to UFC? Any ideas on this one?
He's going to UFC for sure.
I think he's going to UFC for sure.
Like, what in the world? Why would you sign a contract that you know you're going to be used for WrestleMania? Why would you sign your contract one day after WrestleMania? Like, you know you're going to be used for WrestleMania.
Well, I guess that's the thing. And if he re-signs, then there's no problem with it at all, and he could obviously go ahead and win that match. But you know if he's leaving, then he's obviously not winning that match. There's no way that Vince is going to let him take that championship across to UFC. We watched something recently about the Montreal Screwjob, and certainly Bret Hart wasn't going to keep that his title when he went across to WCW, so it's that same situation. And also, he's got no more Raw events in his contract. So I guess in his contract it says how many times he has to appear on Raw. That number now is at 0, and that's why we didn't see him on Monday, even though it was promised he was going to be there to address Roman Reigns. So it's March the 1st today. WrestleMania is going to be in April, and we're not even going to see our champion, Brock Lesnar, at all until WrestleMania. I find this whole situation crazy. I'm done with Brock. He's never there. He fights so little. His matches are so quick. I'm totally done with him. Now, I did hear Roman Reigns talk about on Raw during that promo that was, I thought was really good, how Brock was swanning around Las Vegas with Dana White, that's the UFC president again, instead of attending Elimination Chamber, and he was posting all over Twitter. So, I actually went to look on Twitter. What actually does Brock actually post? I didn't see a single picture with Dana White, so I'm not quite sure what happened. The only tweet I did see was from Paul Heyman, which Brock Lesnar retweeted. And it says, whoever wins the WWE Elimination Chamber tonight, this is from Sunday, should celebrate their career-defining moment because Brock Lesnar is keeping the Universal title long past WrestleMania. Spoiler! That was the end of his tweet. So, that makes me think now, is he staying? Is he not staying? Or, I guess probably Paul Heyman has to say he's staying. Otherwise, if he's not, obviously we know that Brock's losing. What do you think?
Well, I think he's trying to, everyone that sees that, he's trying to think that he's going to win the match.
Mm-hmm.
And, so it's a total twist that he loses.
I think they're just setting it up. I'm not buying it at all. All right, I got a question for you, Mason. So we talked about Twitter earlier. So how many times do you think Brock Lesnar has tweeted so far in 2018? So we're in 2 months. So we've got nearly about 60 days. How many times do you think that the Universal Champion has posted on Twitter?
0.
It's 0, amazingly. I scrolled through. Brock Lesnar, and we said how many followers, that's why I couldn't ask you the followers earlier. 1.12 million followers. He's had 111 tweets in 5 years. And most of those are retweets. Almost everything is a retweet from Paul Heyman. Or sometimes they'll retweet WWE. I scroll through pretty much all of them. If you've got like 10 minutes to spare, you can look at every tweet from Brock Lesnar. Hardly anything is from him. Everybody else is tweeting out things about fans stuff. He doesn't do anything for the organization at all. I'm done with him. I want him out. Here's his last tweet, and tell me see if this has anything to do with WWE. Congratulations to @CalterWall making his New York City debut in support of his new album. And then there's a link to Ticketfly. What does that have to do with WWE?
Absolutely nothing. He's useless. Just let him go to UFC. Nothing's going to change. He's just on WWE holding a title that could be going around in WWE. It's just
we might see a few title matches. I agree. I'm totally done with Brock Lesnar, but I thought that was it. 111 tweets in 5 years. We've been on there for 2 weeks, and I think we already have 75 tweets. Okay, so we're even more. We're going to catch him. We're probably within the next week. All right. In our 6th match today, scheduled for
1 fall.
All right, we have Mason versus Graham again in Who Had the Best Moments from Smackdown, February 27th from Staples Center in LA. So, Mason, do you want to start off with your top three moments from this event?
Starting at number 3 was when John Cena tried to give AJ Styles an AA off the top rope.
Mm-hmm.
AJ Styles, he jumped off the top rope, landed on his feet, and then got Cena into a rack bomb.
And like I say, I don't watch SmackDown as much. I'm much more a bigger fan of Raw. I'd not seen the rack bomb before, so we had to check that one because we weren't quite sure what that one was called. But yeah, certainly that was the end match. Cena moved to SmackDown from Raw because he wasn't getting his chance in WrestleMania. In the intro, he came out and said, "Look, I want a match for WrestleMania. I'll do whatever it takes." Shane came out, and then so did Daniel Bryan, and basically said, we'll give you your opportunity. If you can beat AJ, then you're going to be in the next pay-per-view match. And instead of being a 5-way match, oh my goodness, there's going to be 6 people in that match now. I'm like, can we get any more people in that ring? It's getting a little crazy. Can we just have some singles matches occasionally? I think that would be a nice idea. All right, do you want to talk about your number 2?
Number 2 was when Cena gave AJ an AA through the table.
And yeah, he went to the outside of the ring. He was about to put him in a move. He got outside. John had just run into the steel steps, and then it looked like he was out. AJ went for him, but no, he turned it around, got him into that AA position, and then put him straight through the announcer's table. And yeah, that was actually one of the top moments. That was actually listed as their their 5th moment. And I also had that moment. I actually had that one as my number 1 moment. But anyway, you want to tell me what your number 1 moment was for this?
My number 1 moment was Kevin Owens. He was on commentary for the Sami Zayn Baron Corbin match.
Yeah.
And the commentators asked KO. He said, "Are you okay?" And then Kevin Owens, he said, "Yeah, I'm okay. What in the world would happen to me?" And then Dolph Ziggler jumped over the barricade and kicked him in the head.
Yeah, and I agreed with this one as well. I've had this as one of my top 3 moments. Dolph Ziggler came from nowhere, kicked him in the head, and then sort of rolled by the side of the ring so the referee couldn't see anything. And I was pretty confident I got all my top 3 moments were actually going to get picked this week. And no, that didn't even get a mention at all. So I was kind of surprised about that one. So yeah, no, you didn't get anything for that one. Just the AA through the table, which was our 5th moment. Now, my 3rd moment was that Kevin Owens moment. My moment number 2 was the promo between the Usos and the New Day. I'm a big fan of the Usos, even though they've turned heel. I still like them. I'm absolutely shocked. Part of their promo they announced they haven't been to WrestleMania in 9 years. They've either not attended anything or they've just been on the pre-match card. Absolutely shocking. One of the great tag teams from the last 10 years. New Day, I can't stand the New Day. Big E Langston actually came up with a pretty good promo for that one as well. I thought that was kind of good. But I didn't think Smackdown was great this week, and that's probably why I picked a promo for number 2.
Yeah, it's just hard for this week's Raw and SmackDown because we had such a great Raw and SmackDown last week. I think it was just it's a little below average and I was way over average. It just feels like it's absolutely nothing.
And you could tell the difference. Yeah, last week's was so good. This week's was just not so good. And the difference between the two really did stand out. And my number 1 moment was one you picked earlier, was the AA through the table from Cena. Now, I have a worse moment as well, and we didn't really discuss this ahead of time. At the end of the match, after Cena did win, so there is going to be 6 people in that match now, rushing out was, well, I guess not rushing out, but Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn came in, and then they started attacking everybody, and then suddenly almost everyone was in. Baron Corbin came from the other side, and then eventually Dolph Ziggler came out. I've never seen so many camera changes ever. I think somebody counted them on Twitter. There was like 30 camera changes in 30 seconds. You got to see 1 second of a clip, somebody getting kicked, and it went to another clip, and then another clip. Oh my gosh, I had the biggest headache trying to watch that match. Yeah, not impressed with SmackDown this week. So, shall we have a look at what the actual top 5 moments were?
Yeah.
So, top 5. Number 5 was AA through the table, which we already talked about. And then the number 4 moment was a zigzag to Baron Corbin after he beat Sami Zayn. So we picked the wrong moment. We had Dolph Ziggler, but we didn't pick the one that they picked. Once again, it's at the end of the match, but we don't care. We picked what we think was best. They went with number 3 as the AA that actually won the match for Cena. I was not impressed with that one. I thought I always like the table exploding. The only thing that surprised me was it wasn't the Spanish announcer's table, which normally happens on those things. I thought we had a lot of things in that match that were kind of pay-per-view type qualities. People kicking out of key moves, the AA, and tables being broken, and all that sort of thing. Number 2 was the Usos promo, which we already talked about. And then number 1, all 6 people from Fastlane at the match in the ring at the end. I wasn't impressed with that. I hate the camera changes, but once again, I guess if we want to pick the most popular one, go for the thing that happens just as the title credits are rolling. So, and in our final match scheduled for
1-4,
we have the tweet of the week. So I picked at Ronda Rousey. The first day on the job, at Stephanie McMahon slaps me. Second day on the job, my fellow Olympian, at the real Kurt Angle, an Olympic hero with pneumonia, gets sucker punched by at Triple H. This is far from over. And we already talked about so much about that earlier that I think we could just leave it simply at that. That almost wraps it up for the MGB Wrestling Podcast episode 2. Now, Mason did have a clean sweep on our poll last week. We asked you to vote for who was the best moments. I didn't get a single vote when I last looked. Mason, you got 4. I think probably we should have waited till we had some listeners before we start putting up listeners' polls. But anyway, we got carried away. I think what we're going to do this time is we're just going to do a single poll, who had the best moments. Of course, you didn't get to do Elimination Chamber, so obviously that should give me some extra credit for that one. I'm hoping that people remember that, of course.
Don't listen to them.
But Mason, you are the inaugural champion. You did have the best picks. Congratulations, sir. Is there any words from you? Would you like to cut a promo after winning that first championship?
For the people that are following in my shadows, just be yourself and just have a fun time doing your podcast. And that's how you beat your dad.
All right, and then we'll see how you do next week on this. Okay, we are on Twitter at MGB Wrestling Pod. I'm also on Twitter at Mr. Bagshaw. You can email us at mgbwrestlingpod@gmail.com. Subscribe to us on our YouTube channel so you know straight away, MGB Wrestling Podcast, when we release a new episode. Now, next week we have a Nova Pro event on Friday, so we'll do a special review of that like our first episode. Mason, our first video has already got 90 views when I looked earlier. My aim was 10, so we've far surpassed that already. I think we definitely need to do a special shout out and thanks to several people on Twitter who have retweeted us. I think without that message going out there, we wouldn't have got anywhere close to that number. So thank you for all the kind words we've had and the positive feedback we've had so far. We do need to thank Kevin McLeod at incompetech.com for our theme music Zigzag. That's licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. And you can find that at http://creativecommons.org/licenses/by/3.0/. So that's the end of the podcast for this week. So
it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from him. Goodbye.
Goodbye.